Hey, Emily. Good morning, girl. How are you doing? So today is the 25th of January, 2019. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. I made some cupcakes last night and I probably threw them away this morning. Not because they didn't taste good, because they tasted really fantastic, really. But they just weren't binding together. I actually didn't add any eggs to the recipe. And I had heard that I didn't need to use eggs on the internet, but but now I could see clearly that I was mistaken, or at least the internet was mistaken. I think eggs are definitely needed, or at least an egg substitute to bind the cupcakes together. The cupcakes that I made were just they came apart so easily. They weren't even necessarily bread like. Yeah, I guess at first before you touch them, they were bread like when they were still in the mold. But once you took if you could take the bread out of the mold, then it would just crumble into small pieces. So anyway, I've got a challenge um, this coming weekend to make some cupcakes that are worth eating, that are worth giving away to others as presents. I have been really surprised lately, Emily, about how I've been enjoying baking. Um, uh, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday, or maybe it was the day before. I took some, what was it? I guess it was a cake. I took a bundt cake to work that I made, and it was kind of a hit. It was a chocolate bundt cake. A lot of people like it. And here's the thing, though. I think people are really gracious and thankful to receive a gift like a cake. And I think they may be just overly kind sometimes because the cake wasn't really that good, in my opinion. I mean, it was fine. And it might have been described as, well, I don't know. By cake standards are really stiff. There's a lot of competition out there for the best cakes and cupcakes. And there are some amazing specimens of cake out there. So I'm sure that on a scale from 1 to 10, my cake was probably a 1 or a 2 or a 3, and I'd be lucky to be a 3. There are some bakers out there, pastry makers out there who are amazing, right? The stuff they put together is just fabulous. For me, I'm really just satisfied to even offer a cake, to have the time and energy and willingness to prepare one. And what I think is funny is just how excited I am about making cakes right now. Making cakes and cupcakes, and I'm choosing frostings of various types. I've found that I like the Duncan Hines frostings better than the Betty Crocker frostings. I know. It's gotten to that point where I am comparing the different brands and finding out what kinds of cakes and frostings I like to eat, and it's fun. And you know what? It's relatively inexpensive. It's a very inexpensive hobby. I can buy from a box cake mix enough cake to last me weeks for $1. I'm serious, for $1. For $1. And frosting costs only $1.50 for a container, which is almost no money. It's super cheap. And I mean the enjoyment that I get from the cakes and cupcakes that I make, it's huge. I mean, it's huge. It really rings my bell in terms of my enjoyment of the smells and just the process of cooking and the eating of the cooking, of course. It's really surprising how much enjoyment I'm getting from it. And so I'm really glad to know, I'll tell you, here's one thing. I go with my gut when it comes to things I'm excited about or interested in. And right now I'm all about making cakes, and I'm making pizzas, and I want to make some chocolate chip cookies. And what's kind of funny is that tomorrow I've been thinking about traveling to Universal Studios in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. And though at the same time, I want to make some cakes. I want to make some chocolate chip cookies, and I want to make some cupcakes. And so in my mind, I'm balancing, should I go to the amusement park or should I bake cakes? I know, it's crazy. It's crazy in the sense that, well, first of all, both activities are enjoyable to me. I mean, I love both going to amusement parks and I love baking cakes. Wouldn't it be wonderful if I could do both? In fact, that's something I hadn't even considered. I could do both in one day. I could bake a cake and then go to Universal Studios Hollywood, the amusement park. Wow. That would be a full day. Let me tell you, it is enough to travel to Hollywood and go to the amusement park and travel back. I mean, that is a whole day affair. And to add baking a cake into that affair, into my schedule, I'm not sure I could do that. I think I'd have to wake up an extra hour early to do that. It's kind of funny. At least I'm doing what I like, right? I'm doing what I love. Speaking of doing what I love, I am going to college right now, and Helen Hancock College. I got 2 classes, 3 days a week, right? Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I'm taking welding and yoga class. And what's great about all this, I just picked up my textbook on Wednesday, 2 days ago, at the university. The textbook, I'm looking at it right now. That's what I'm looking at right now. The textbook is called Modern Welding. That's the title. And I am super stoked about reading the chapters. In fact, you know what? I think what I'll do is I'll bring it along in my car today and say during my lunch break or after work, I'll start reading that textbook. And I'll knock out a few chapters, right? 1, 2, 3, maybe the first 3 chapters. We'll see. Believe it or not, some of these chapters take a long time to read, like an hour or 2 hours to read. I'm serious. There's a lot of information in this welding technology class. I'm serious. There's all kinds. There's MIG welding, TIG welding, oxyacetylene welding. There's just all kinds of stuff going on. So I'm loving the learning. It's continuous. That's how I operate. That's how I flow, man. Speaking of learning, last weekend, of course, I went to the Los Angeles Natural History Museum, and I was there to look at the dinosaur bones. Right, I saw the Triceratops. I saw Tyrannosaurus Rex. I saw Stegosaurus, all kinds of bones. I saw bones of ancient mammals who lived in the continental United States, the North America, ancient horses, ancient camels, and really fascinated by the whole process. And I figured what we could talk about this morning is the Cretaceous extinction that happened 65 million years ago as a result of the meteor that hit the Earth and caused that extinction of all those reptiles. And so I picked up a book at the Allen Hancock College University Library called Pinati's Extraordinary Endings to Practically Everything and Everybody. And there is an excerpt here that describes the Cretaceous extinction, and I thought I'd go over it and we could learn something together. All right. So the dominant life forms that became extinct at the Cretaceous extinction were the dinosaurs, particularly the 3-horned Triceratops, a massive four-legged plant-eating browser with large bony crest over its neck, a long horn above each eye, and a short horn on its nose. I saw a few skulls of a triceratops in Los Angeles at the Natural History Museum. Amazing. Huge animals. Something disastrous happened at the end of the Cretaceous period, 136 to 65 million years ago. A geological time span that derives its name from the vast thicknesses of fossil-rich chalk, Latin Creta, laid down around the world rather quickly by geological measure. Nearly half of all living organisms, animal, vegetable, marine, and terrestrial, disappeared. The Cretaceous debacle stands as history's second largest extinction after the Permian, and it is best known because of the complete die-off of the dinosaurs. Recent measurements indicate that no land creature weighing more than 55 pounds survived. Among those tiny survivors was, of course, a mammal that would lead to man. So this is fascinating. No creature over 55 pounds. That tells me that there must have been pretty much no food. If your body size was bigger than 55 pounds, there's no way that you could have gotten enough food from the environment to live. So that means, wow, that's amazing. I'm curious about what the animal was that created humans, that sort of predated humans, that survived the Cretaceous extinction. Before searching for a cause or causes of the Cretaceous extinction, it is important to know what those times were like. By late Cretaceous, as the Great Dying neared the breakup of the supercontinents, Gondwanaland and Laurasia was well advanced. Land masses were taking on their modern outlines and locations. Southern continents became vast islands. Seas split the northern landmass, Laurasia, into two: Asia America, East Asia, with Western North America, and Euramerica, Europe with Eastern North America. Mountain building began pushing up the mighty Rockies and Andes. There can be no doubt that these changes isolated many groups of dinosaurs. Creatures that evolved in Asia America could no longer easily reach other continents and vice versa. But such a geological argument alone cannot explain the massive extinction that was about to happen. Experts still dispute the cause of the catastrophe that brought on the massive Mesozoic murder. Humorist Will Cuppy wrote in the 1940s, "The age of the reptiles ended because it had gone on long enough." There is considerable truth in that wisecrack. No species lasts forever, and the dinosaurs had reigned for more than 50 million years. By contrast, Homo sapiens have been around for about 100,000 years. I think that's been extended now. I think Homo sapiens have been around at least 200,000 years to 250,000 years. In a sense, their time was up, but Glibelus explains nothing, and extinction of the dinosaurs comprises only a minor ending in comparison to all other life forms that perished along with them. Something spectacularly cataclysmic had to have happened. Well, golly, this is, I think there's really pretty much a consensus about the meteorite impact and nuclear winter. So let's just go to that. Another leading hypothesis for the sudden dying off of so many species 65 million years ago has to do with the dense dust and stinging rain. In this scenario, a shower of meteorites blasting through the Earth's atmosphere burns up partially, reducing noxious gases that produce acidic rain. The unburned meteorites collide with the planet, lifting skyward clouds of dust that block sunlight, reduce global temperatures. Under dark reddish-brown acidic skies, animals suffocated and vegetation shrivels. It happened on the small scale when Vesuvius smothered Pompeii and Herculaneum. And it could be the aftermath of all-out nuclear war, blackened skies and barren frozen landscapes in nuclear winter. Did meteorites, asteroids, or comets hit the Earth 65 million years ago? There's a compelling evidence for this in radioactive elements found in the Earth's soil, which are the scars of extraterrestrial pelting. In addition, there's the famous crater in Iowa, the Mansion structure, measuring 20 miles wider. You know what I'm finding about the writing in this book is I really don't particularly like it. And I'm pretty sure we've figured out um, what the what meteor hit the Earth and where. I think it's the meteor that formed the Gulf of Mexico or nearby. That sort of was a big part of the Yucatan Peninsula. So I'm gonna stop reading this because I think it's out of date. I know it's when I say it's out of date, it's kind of funny how even I think it's out of date. 1989. This was 30 years ago. I think we know a lot more about the Cretaceous extinction than what's being described here. So but instead of sort of correcting the writing in this book, I think what I'm going to do is probably find some reference in the future. I'll find a book that describes the Cretaceous extinction based on what we know today. Hey, Google, tell me about what caused the Cretaceous extinction 65 million years ago.
Here's a summary from the website khanacademy.org. Scientists refer to the major extinction that wiped out non-avian dinosaurs as the KT extinction because it happened at the end of the Cretaceous period and the beginning of the Tertiary period. The extinction that occurred 65 million years ago wiped out some 50% of plants and animals.
Yeah, fascinating. 50% of plants and animals. And it's amazing to imagine how many extinctions have happened on the planet Earth where about that number of plants and animals die off. You know, what's interesting to me too is how we are on the cusp of another such extinction with global warming and climate change. We are fast rolling into another extinction event that is going to be cataclysmic for the planet. And so, thankfully, I'm only going to be alive for another 40 years. And, that's as far as I can go. If I'm lucky, I can make it 40 years from now because things are going to start getting hairy real quick here on this planet. Yeah. And when I mean hairy, what I mean by that is that temperatures are going to really start skyrocketing. Boom. Wow. And all these glaciers are going to start melting. And of course, the glaciers in Greenland and of course the polar ice caps are just going to start melting like crazy, like gangbusters. I mean, they already are. So there's a lot of surprises in store for you, Emily. I'm sure that human beings will find a way to survive. In fact, one of the ideas that I've been entertaining myself about how humans will survive is that we won't necessarily go into space and colonize the moon. I think what we will do, actually, in fact, is burrow underground. We will create huge underground cities and we will live underground. And underground is where we will find our home. At least until we can get the Earth's atmosphere under our control, which we will get under our control. I'm actually quite highly confident we will get the Earth's atmosphere under our control, and it'll be under strict control. And the reason I believe that is because I know that human beings are excellent at manipulating their environment. We are very skilled. I mean, entire cities are laying with concrete, buildings made of concrete. Our environments are very well designed and monitored, and we have indoor plumbing and indoor heating, and we control the foods that come into our bodies through our mouths. We are definitely control freaks, so to speak. We're highly focused on controlling our environment, and we're very good at it. And we're really just becoming aware about climate change now. And we've already got, I'm sure, a good 5, 10, maybe, you know, that may even be a simplification. We probably have already 1,000 new ways to manage our environment through carbon taxes and recycling programs and electric vehicles. I mean, we're already coming up with ways to manipulate our environment as it relates to climate change. And, even just the transition from incandescent light bulbs to fluorescent light bulbs, and then from fluorescent light bulbs to LEDs, we are all making progress. Despite the level of unbelief in our social sphere and political sphere regarding climate change, people are already making adjustments, microscopic, small adjustments that are going to have large impacts on climate change. For example, veganism. A lot of people are choosing the vegetarian or vegan lifestyle for climate reasons. They are, for them, it's more of a low carbon footprint type expression, and these are just ways that human beings manage and alter their external environments. We do an amazing job with it. It's almost unconscious. We're like beavers, beavers who are busy at work cutting down trees and adjusting water levels in streams through our building. It's just something that we do. We are excellent at modifying our environments, and the earth is no exception. We've been modifying the earth for years and years. How have we modified the earth? Through our homes that we've built, through our cities that we've built. So I am 100% confident that eventually human beings will manage our climate, that this atmosphere that we live in, this 62 miles in altitude of atmosphere that we call our home. I think we're definitely going to manage it. We're going to manage it well. We just have to sort of all get on board. We're sort of in a transition phase right now, and we have been in a transition phase for about the last 20 years. Here, one of the big problems about human society is that we suffer from what I call scientific illiteracy. There's a lot of scientific illiteracy in the world, and that makes it hard for us to make adjustments that we need to make to support our population and to support our health. A lot of people don't even get vaccinations, which is I can't think of a more efficient or effective way to live a long and healthy life. And there are people who are pushing back on vaccinations. I'm serious. It's almost laughable. But this is scientific illiteracy. And it's tragic. And it's kind of interesting that human beings have a past, over the last few millennia of subcultures that develop, which are anti-intellectual. These are subcultures that sort of raise the idea of non-thinking and sort of support it. I'm not sure where these customs are coming from necessarily, but there's a rich tradition. In fact, religion is, in fact, a tradition that is an anti-intellectual effect. And, that's why it's so problematic. There's sort of, essentially, I think of religions as book clubs, and there are different kinds of book clubs out there. It's kind of book clubs that raise a single book as being the book to read, and to the exclusion of all other books. That is, creating rules about not reading other books or not learning about other stuff that's going on. It's really fascinating. It's almost the same way as gangs. I think of them as being gangs. Gangs are about sort of taking ownership of like little properties of tracts of land, like East Side, West Side gangs, and gangs who sort of take control of street corners and things like that. you know, um, these book clubs or religions are very similar. They sort of take ownership of certain idea spaces, right? And they don't let anyone into their idea space, and they don't let people leave their idea space. And what is it they take ownership of? Who knows? They try to conserve some part of the world, whether it's idea or behavior, and they or a place, right? Whoa, or a place. Oh my, I'm losing my base of stability here on my camera. So yeah, it's very interesting, the whole idea of the book clubs and the gangs. And I don't know, that's how they preserve themselves, right? That's how they pass along their ideas. I appreciate this. It's essentially a kind of grasping, right? Gangs, they grasp at street corners, and religious people, they grasp at ideas, virtues, behaviors. And it's about scarcity, right? It's about scarcity. And it might be a scarcity of certain virtues, scarcity of behavior. I don't know. Now I might be overgeneralizing a little bit, but yeah, there is this sort of anti-intellectual, anti-scientific, these cultural and societal flows. I think we're righting ourselves. We're doing a good job. Thankfully, the Industrial Revolution and the information revolution, the information age, the age of computers is really helping out. Really helping out people to be more scientifically focused, more focused on reality, things like that. So I'm really pleased by it. All right, so I was thinking that what we could do now is we could do a little question and answer session. The question and answer session is for me the purpose of it is to give you a little bit of insight into who I am, to what makes me tick, and I just wanted to afford you the sort of the pleasure of getting to know me a little better. And what better way to do that than by answering a few questions and seeing what my answers are? I'm curious to know what my answers are too. It's, I'm all about self-discovery, self-exploration, and this is definitely one way to do it. And so it's a mutual benefit. It's a win-win-win. That's what I say. So question number 210, are you more of a dog person or a cat person, and why? The answer to that question is that I am more of a dog person. I have had good relationships with dogs. I love dogs. I think they're amazing. I don't own a dog. I live in a one-bedroom apartment, so there's not a lot of space in here. And I could get one of those tiny dogs, but here's the thing about me and animals. I care about animals. I care about their welfare. I care about them, their mental welfare, their psychological welfare. And what that means is that I do not want to I don't want to steer a small animal wrong. I want to support all the needs and desires of any animals that are around me. And keeping an animal locked up in my small apartment all day long is not a good idea. And, I also know that dogs are very social, right? They're social creatures. And, I just don't live in a really dog-friendly environment in the sense that there aren't a lot of other dogs around, and there aren't a lot of other humans either. Like there's just me. And there are my neighbors and my friends and acquaintances. But it's not like a highly social environment that a dog would be able to thrive in. And so I'm really feeling really good about not having dogs. you know, there is that idea of sort of the added expense of having a dog, like the veterinary bills and the food and the water and all that stuff. That doesn't bother me as much. My interest is in caring for the dog and making sure that the dog is happy and has an interesting environment, that the dog can learn daily and exercise daily. And I just don't have access to that kind of environment. If I live, say, on the edge of a giant forest, that would be saying something. Then I would feel I'd be able to conscientiously own a dog. And because I would be able to preserve, that dog could roam the earth, roam the area, and enjoy themselves. But I don't know. So I don't think the environment that I frequent in would be really conducive to having a dog and keeping that dog happy and healthy. Okay, so why am I not a cat person? That's another question. Well, here's the thing about cats. They hurt. I've been bitten and scratched by dogs, but it's been almost nothing compared to the damage that a cat does to your body. I've been scratched by a cat too, and it is rough, painful, extremely painful scratches. I've been bitten by cats, and they've got the teeth and the claws that are just nonstop, And so there's the harm that cats do, which in my opinion is greater than the harm that dogs do. Cats, I don't know, painful creatures to be around. And not only that, they're just not that social. At least not that I can tell. They're not necessarily the funnest animals to have around. I think the most fun that you can have with a cat is that it lies on you lazily or beside you while you're watching TV or reading a book or something like that. What kind of pleasure is that? I'm watching TV or reading a book at the time. So yeah, I'm not a cat person. Cats' personalities are actually quite subtle. Cats spend a lot of time at a distance from you. They're doing their thing. They're exploring their world, and they don't spend a lot of time around me. I mean, I'm here. I'm not over there. So, whereas dogs, they like that close face-to-face companionship, and that's something I really enjoy. So yeah, I'm a dog person, not a cat person, and that's why. So question number 211, what is your preference? Plane, train, boat, automobile, horse, or camel? Okay. I've only rode a camel one time, and that was at the Rio Grande Zoo. And that was when I was like 10 years old. And I've ridden horses before, but only for recreation and only for short times. And that was when I was a boy. My dad at one time owned horses in Taos, New Mexico. And we had some on our property, and very occasionally we do some horseback riding. So I have limited experience with that. So really the question is about what mode of transportation is my preference: planes, trains, boats, or automobiles? Well, my preference is, of course, automobiles, because I ride in an automobile or a car often, regularly. And that's where I spend a lot of my time, in vehicles. The places that I go, like Universal Studios in Los Angeles, that takes a good 2.5 hours to drive to. And, to drive there and back, that's a good 4 to 5 hours worth of driving in that day. So I'm moving around in automobiles all the time as I commute to work and back, go to the grocery store and come back. Um, and I think automobiles are my most preferred transportation method. Now, how about other things like planes, trains, and boats, and maybe buses? Um, I don't have a lot of experience in any of those modes of transportation. I've taken trains once or twice. Um, they're okay, I think. Um, I'm not particularly enamored or enthused about taking trains, but I do appreciate the ability to sort of move and sort of enjoy the landscapes and the sceneries as they pass by. Buses are very much the same as trains in that sense. They're basically a way of locomotion for large groups of people, and I enjoy buses for the same reason. I get to sort of kick back and not drive. Driving is kind of a hassle. It sort of takes focus and attention to drive from point A to point B, and so it's nice to be relieved from that responsibility and hand it off to someone else who's a professional and who's 100% focused on driving. So that's great. So yeah, I like buses and trains. They're fine. I've also been enjoying learning about the subway in Los Angeles, and I've ridden that a couple times in the past, and I find that to be quite enjoyable. All right, certainly not as enjoyable as driving in my car, though. I like driving in my car. I've got my stereo. It's nice. Now, how about planes and boats? Well, here's the thing about boats. I don't spend a lot of time on boats. I've been on boats here and there. I went on a cruise some time back, a very short 3-day cruise. And boats, I've been in rowboats and other kinds of boats. It's not something that really draws my attention. Here's the thing about the water. When you're on the water, you're pretty much surrounded by water. There's like nothing to do. You're basically sitting in a boat, right, in the hull. And my question is, what do you do next? It's nice to look at the scenery, absolutely, but I don't know what to do in a boat. You just sit and look around, sit and stare, I guess. There's some novelty when it comes to being on a boat. And I could appreciate that novelty, that change. But it's not something that I crave. I don't necessarily need to be in boats. So what was the other one? It was planes. Well, I like airplanes, mainly because when I'm in them, it's usually not for that long a time, maybe 1, 2, 3 hours, maybe even 4 hours at the most. I have been on long airplane rides. I think I was on an airplane ride one time that lasted like 6 hours or 12 hours or something like that. I don't particularly care for those experiences. I prefer the quick flight, 1, 2, 3 hours. I like planes. I think planes for me are also rather quite neutral. There are things that I don't like about being in a plane. This idea of being above the ground, a little bit out of control. Like I'm not making any decisions about where to go and how to go there. But then there's things like choppy travel. I forget what it's called. That could be rather disconcerting when when your body's moving like in all directions. I don't know. Being in an airplane can be scary sometimes. I'm not really a fan of that. So, but what I like about airplanes is the prospect of being in a new place, a very different place at the end of the flight. That I think is the most interesting part of being in an airplane. The surprise you get when the door opens, when the cabin door opens and you're in a totally new place. That happened to me when I traveled to Hawaii. When that door opens and you're walking out, everything is different. There's something different about Hawaii. You can sense almost immediately when you get out of doors. It is humid there. It is warm there, and I don't know. It's just I could just really remember the difference. It's really pretty amazing. It's a different place, and so that's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to recognize that change, the change of environments that airplane riding makes possible. Okay, so what's the next question? Okay, question number 212. How far in advance do you prefer to plan and why? Okay. So this is actually a part of my personality that I've been exploring lately. For me, planning happens 1 or 2 days, maybe 3 days before an actual event. So my planning time span is about max 72 hours. Now, why is that? Why don't I do long-term planning? I don't know. I think I have a sense that my life would go better if I was more attentive about my planning my schedule and planning my days. And I have a sense of loss because I don't do a lot of planning. And so, yeah, that's a problem. I need to spend more time doing planning. I think I could make a lot of progress. I think I could live just higher quality of life if I spent more time planning. Like, for example, I was thinking about going to Universal Studios tomorrow, and I just came up with that idea about an hour ago. Maybe an hour and a half ago, maybe 2 hours ago. And that's the idea about what I was going to do tomorrow. I'm figuring it out just right as I'm real time figuring it out, which is kind of interesting. It's also kind of sad. There are people who plan to go, they do a lot of planning in advance, and they plan in advance like a week ahead or 2 weeks ahead of schedule. I know people who plan months in advance for doing things. Wow, that's amazing. It's kind of scares me a little bit because here's one thing that I prefer not to happen, and that is I don't want to plan something and then decide not to do it last minute. I like the adventure of how things change. I like to live the unscripted life. I know I'm sort of accepting certain losses by not doing as much planning, but there's also a whole lot less stress. The problem with planning is that you end up making commitments, right? And not that making commitments is bad, but I like to keep my commitments. I like to have those commitments solidly in place. And the more time there is between, say, today and the commitment in the future, the greater possibility or chance that things will change. And change is continuous. It's continuously happening. And for example, what if I get sick? Or, what if, what if my energy level is low on a certain day? What if I just want to do something else because I've just gotten interested in other things, like baking cakes? I know. So that's something that I'm not so keen on when it comes to long-term planning. I admire people who can do long-term planning, and there are a lot of them. There are people who plan out their months, they plan out their lives months and months in advance. And I'm just not into that. Maybe I had to give that a try. Maybe. Now, that's not to say I don't do some kind of planning. There are things that I'm going to be doing in the future that I'm certain I'm going to be doing, and I've already put it on my calendar that I'm going to be doing those things, and I'm excited about doing those things. But they are sort of onesies, twosie things, special events. Yeah. So anyway, that's where I stand on planning. So basically, I don't. I'm just figuring out what I'm doing day after day. One of these days, if it starts making sense to me to plan more in advance, I'll do that. But I like to have freedom in my schedule. You know what? More and more, I'm finding that one of my strongest, most keen values that I have is freedom. Every day, I'm coming to appreciate more and more just how important freedom is to me. The ability, it's about freedom of choice, freedom to make choices when I want to make them, how I want to make them. And believe it or not, planning sort of runs counter to that choice. You sort of lose choice. I know you gain a lot of choice when you do planning too. But I'm especially keen on the choices lost when I do long-term planning. Anyway, so let's move on to the next question. Question number 213. What's your favorite board game? And do you usually win? Well, I think my favorite board game of all time is checkers. Yeah. And do I usually win? I win a lot of the time, but I don't always win. What I like about checkers is that, first of all, anyone can win, and that often there are a lot of hidden solutions. I also like the relatively fast pace of the game. There are some games like chess which are just so slow. It loses my interest so quickly, partly because of that. I need a fairly fast-moving game. And I also want fairly short games. I want games that last 10 minutes max. If the game lasts any longer than 10 minutes, forget it. I'm kind of like the ADHD of game playing. The games that I like the most are the quick games. Now, I've got friends who play these really long board games. These board games last for days and days. And, I could see the pleasure in that. Dungeons and Dragons is a good example of that. And I think I could really get into Dungeons and Dragons if there were opportunities to play. And I really appreciate, just living in that fantasy world sounds amazing to me. And I'm getting a little bit of that sense when I'm reading the Harry Potter novels and going to see the Harry Potter movies and going to the Harry Potter amusement parks, things like that. I'm getting a little bit of the sense of that game. And that's what I'd call a long game, right? But for the most part, I really enjoy the short games, like the quick card games, things like that. Now, do I have any other favorite board games? Well, yeah. I like Life. And, I really like Candyland and Shoots and Ladders. Sure, why not? Those are fun games to play with age-appropriate kids, Let's see. What other games? There are some games I just do not like Monopoly. Could never really get into that game. And I tried to get into chess, but just it wasn't in me. The focus on the logic of the game and strategy and the rules and how long the game takes. Just not into it. I'm also really not into card games either. Now, I've had fun with playing Pokemon the card game and Magic the card game. Those are pretty awesome games, and I could definitely get into those. But we're really talking about board games in this conversation right now. See, what other board games do I like? I like Chinese checkers. Believe it or not, I like Chinese checkers a lot. I like Connect Four. I like Tic Tac Toe. That's definitely a game on the short side that I really enjoy. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to start wrapping things up a little bit. I'd like to say a few words just about what's been going on lately. I'm thinking that what I would like to do, Emily, is send you some chocolate chip cookies, a batch of chocolate chip cookies. Maybe I'll do that early next week. That's a possibility as a gift. I just want to say that I appreciate you and how much of a contribution you make to my life. You may not think that you make a large contribution to my life, but I think the facts are that you do. I receive a lot of hidden benefits from you being in my life, benefits that may not be as obvious to you as they are to me. As a, me, I'm always interested in self-development, self-growth, and so I'm always focusing on developing my virtues and developing ways to sort of get to know what my values are, what my wishes are, and goals and needs. And so I'm always exploring these ideas about what's benefiting me about this situation. And, I am really learning a lot about myself in relationship with you. And I know you may not be even thinking that we have much of a relationship, but from my end, there is one. I imagine that there is one, and I like to imagine it. And what I learn a lot of things. I learn about what's important to me as a father. For example, I like to be recognized. I also like to be, these are sort of, I like to be thought of as being significant. I like to be thought of as being important. And I also love the creativity of learning new things about people, because I use other people's ideas and inputs as stepping stones to my own development. So if someone's interested in horses, say, I might start gravitating toward horses and asking myself, what does this person like about horses so much? And for me, that is an avenue for personal growth. It's how I get curious about what is important to other people, and then I sort of try it on myself, right? I try on, with my own twist. I ask myself, is this something for me too? And so for me, when I'm with other people, it's a learning experience. It's about me sort of figuring out what other people like and enjoy. And then I ask myself those same questions about whether I like or enjoy that activity that another person is interested in. Like right now, I've got a friend who's into stand-up paddleboarding, and I'm asking myself, man, maybe what I had to do is connect with that person and go do some stand-up paddleboarding. For me, that's how I learn. It's about exploring other people's interests and maybe doing it along with them and asking myself if I enjoy those interests as well. So I appreciate that, you know. And for music choice is a really good avenue for self-development. I can ask other people what kind of music they're into. And, when I start discovering and exploring that music too, I might decide to go to a music concert. And, that just changes my life. I go to the music concert. Maybe I meet other enthusiasts of the same music artist, and it just snowballs. My life becomes different in a significant way. And it's different because of what I learned from my friends or my relatives or my daughter. And so my life is enriched as a result. So, that's basically how I use my relationships with other people. I use them for exploration and avenues for discovery. And, um, it's exciting. For me, that's how I learn, it's how I grow. So I just wanted to let you know that, despite you may not be thinking, well, you may not be thinking that we're that close or there's not much going on here. For me, there's all kinds of stuff going on. And for me, I'm examining, how does Miguel like to receive love? How does Miguel like to offer love? These are interesting conversations that I have with myself. Um, how does Miguel, um, how is Miguel in a friendship? What is it like to be in a friendship with me? And what do I think love is? What does it mean to be a father? What does it mean to be a parent? Um, so, I'm continuously exploring these ideas, and I'm learning. I'm just learning all the time, and even when we're not face to face. So that's kind of great. It's essentially, it is a hidden benefit of our relationship. It's me sort of growing, developing, and then really even me transforming as a person. For me, it's about hearing the words yes and the words no, and how I react to hearing those words, right? It's also about negotiation. How do I negotiate time with you through your mom? And, there's strategy involved, there's philosophy involved, and it's about me working that out. you know it's also about me sort of figuring out who I am in relationship, and it's about what I need for connection. There are a lot of subtle details to be worked out. And these are details that I don't necessarily have to communicate to other people. um, and so, I just want you to know that there is stuff working in the background going on in terms of my own mental life. And I appreciate it. It's stimulating, to say the least. And it's transforming, to say the most. And so, you know I'm I'm in continuous discovery mode, right? Continuously curious, continuously interested in how things are working themselves out, how my life is unfolding, and how we are sort of connecting and unfolding in partnership with one another. And so anyway, I want to say that I love you. I want to say that I cherish you. I'm here for you. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to offer you the gifts that I can offer, the gifts that I'm willing to offer. For me, a lot of it is discovering what gifts I have to offer. How how can I what can I do to I mean what can I offer another person? I don't know, what can I offer my own child? How can I make invitations that are effective and useful and beneficial, mutually beneficial, you know? So anyway, that's where I am right now. I hope you have a wonderful day. Again, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Like I said, I'm going to be going to Universal Studios this weekend. I'll probably also be doing some baking of cupcakes. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.